Welcome to I Said What I Said. I'm Brad Wakai. That's Tyson Gentry. We're just coming off our NFL Combine Risers episode. So go check that out if you haven't already. This is going to be our Fallers episode. Unfortunately, who cost themselves a spot in the draft? Who cost themselves a cash holder? Just based on what we saw at Indianapolis. This is not like, oh, we think they suck now. This is just like, I don't know. There's some more questions. Who's moving down the board here after Indianapolis? Tyson, it's always tough doing these episodes, I feel like.
Yeah, and it's always like I was telling you right before we started, these ones are always like most of them is just funny stuff that like you don't think about when you're a normal human being. And then all of a sudden hand size comes in or arm length comes in, and you're like, I don't know if that guy could play anymore. And then the NFL tells us, and they're right about a lot of this stuff, but it's a weird time of year.
Yeah, for sure. And like Tyson and I are pretty on the positive end of things in draft coverage. Like that's just kind of like how we look at like what can this guy do and how can he help a football team instead of being like this guy sucks, like he can't do this.
And we are not saying that any of these guys are not going to be good players. It's just simply about what happened in Indianapolis.
Exactly. So let's get into it now, Tyson. We got our fallers, and then 5 guys that we both have looked at are like, hey, we agree that let's talk about them. And we each had 5 different guys. So I'm curious to get into this. Let's start with the quarterbacks. We both said, Will Howard and Dylan Gabriel had a tough showing in Indianapolis. And I think it's both for the same reason, because to me, it was accuracy for both of them. I mean, these are guys that you had to come in with not the big arm and not the big size and not the prototype size and show to the scouts and show to the people, the decision makers in the building, hey, I'm super accurate. I can be Drew Brees. Hey, I'm super accurate. I could be Peyton Manning, or I could be so-and-so who throws a great ball and is timing and everything like this, even though I don't have a big arm. That did not happen for these 2.
No, Will Howard got like way more online hate for some reason for his inaccuracy. If you haven't seen the videos, go look them up. That's going to explain a lot of what we're talking about here with Will Howard. But with Dylan Gabriel, it's like, dude, we were sold and we've seen this guy be accurate. That was like the whole thing. We knew the arm wasn't going to pop off the screen at the combine, and it's not a class of great passers. I thought he had a chance to like help himself out a little bit because he's already tiny, and that like this is. And we're not talking like, oh, he fell out of the first round, but this is going to cost him probably a significant amount of money.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, because here's the other thing, Tyson. Because now that you're kind of looking at, hey, let's analyze the quarterback position. Because it used to be, well, if you're a backup, you just got to be a good locker room guy and hold the clipboard and help out the starter. Now it's like you might have to play for 4 games. And that's what these teams, well, the smart ones are going to be looking at. Like, can Dylan Gabriel, if we go to him, win us at least 2 games? Because that's what you're looking for the backup. Go 500. If anything more is better. Anything less is unfortunate and probably going to have to look for a different backup. I don't know if any of those 2 did enough here this combine that they're like, yeah, we have confidence now that you guys can fill in as undersized players, as undersized quarterbacks, and step into that role and win at the NFL level.
Don't these 2 just kind of strike you as guys that nailed interviews all week, though?
Oh, for sure. You know it. Been in college 4 years plus. Definitely. I mean, yeah, we're not privy to that. This is all athletic stuff, of course. So let's get into Tyson. Holy smokes. What happened with these 2 here? The next 2 guys on our list, both wide receivers, Isaiah Bond and Tez Johnson, I think both rolled down as fallers for us for different reasons.
Bro, being quiet is free. It costs nothing to shut up. And Isaiah Bond goes, and look, that sounded harsh, but it's true. Isaiah Bond goes to the podium and needlessly draws attention to himself. I'm going to break the record. And then he doesn't even put up a bad time, Brad, but that's how it feels after you say that you're going to run 4.2. Right, like, and then at 4.2 flat, he might even get into 4.1s. He said, and when your teammate shows up and runs a 4.29 and leads all wide receivers, that it hurts. It's got to hurt your stock. And then with Tez Johnson, we've never seen a guy be this small, run this slow. He ran a 4.51 at 154 pounds. That's not hyperbole. Nobody that's weighed that little has ever ran that slow at the NFL Combine. And look, he also opened his mouth before. He said, don't blink. You might miss it. I could have blinked, 4.51 times during Tez Johnson's 40.
Boy, oh boy. Yeah. A lot of things to unpack here. I think you're right on the Bond thing. It's not just the time. Although people are like, yeah, well, 4.39 is good. It's like, yeah, it's a good time, Tyson, but he's 5'11", 180. His athleticism score is 20th at this combine.
And he wasn't doing enough on the field to make you think Isaiah Bond is he's a lock to go here in the draft.
Right. we'll get into the wide receivers in our breakdown. I do think that still, I know people are starting to sour on this class. I still think it's a really good wide receiver class. I think this has a chance to bury him, man. I mean, I'm just looking at it now. Like, again, it's the thing to say, oh, I'm showing up and I'm running this. Yikes. And then on the other hand, Tez Johnson thing, Tyson, there was already concerns, man. 150 pounds. That's insane.
Yeah.
And the guy shows up, runs a 4.51, 44th in athleticism score. At the combine, at this combine, that's not even talking about the Jamar Chases, the Justin Jeffersons, the A.J. Browns, already the freaks in this league. It's at this combine. Some of these guys are going to be selling cars one day. You know what I mean? Working at Enterprise, all that stuff. Like, that's just the reality of the situation. That is scary. And Tyson, okay, 37-inch vert, 10-11 broad, which you like on the broad. I mean, that's pretty explosive, but not enough to, like, be, okay, yeah, the 5'10", 150-pound guy is going to be a head turner.
Yeah. And you mentioned they're going to work in Enterprise. Did you see the Hunter Renfro thing?
No, what happened?
He's like, well, it's not a big deal. I mean, good for him, but he's listed, I believe, on the South Carolina state government website, like working in recycling.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, like he's fully done. It happens fast. That's a guy that, like, caught 1 million passes 3 or 4 years ago, and he's only 29 years old.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. NFL, not for long, folks. Don't forget that. And I'll tell you, Ollie Gordon, running back from Oklahoma State, did not do himself any favors here in Indianapolis. Now, I want to preface this: 6'1", 226. He's a big running back, right? But you run a 4.61, your 10-yard split's 1.6. This is the scary thing to me, Tyson. I'm okay with, like, a little bit slower 40 if you have explosion on the vert and the broad. 34.5, 10 feet on the broad. Boy, that was shocking to me. I mean, like, bad numbers, not good. That's scary.
Yeah, it's been a free fall for like 7 months. I mean, we went into the last college football season with Ollie Gordon as a Heisman favorite amongst the running back position. Is like he's going to do a lot of stuff that's crazy. And look, again, that's not his game. He's not here to win a foot race with you. He's here to hit you in the hole, and that's fine. But in a combine, actually, that's good. That's how I want my running backs to play. But in a combine, where we, like, if you haven't seen the Risers episode, like, go check that out. We talked about multiple running backs who helped themselves out. We had to leave some off for how well that they performed, and it just wasn't good for Ollie.
No, it wasn't. And the other thing, Tyson, too, it's like, yeah, you can do it at the Big 12 level playing that way. But can you do it at the NFL level? And I think you wanted to at least see it 4.55. Honestly, if you're talking about, oh, can we take a risk on this guy within the solid running back class like this? I do not think this helped him, like you said. Let's get into where different guys caught our eyes. For me, Trey Harris, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt here. He's been dealing with a foot injury. Now again, this isn't like, oh, I think Trey Harris sucks. He actually might be my top 5 wide receiver for me in this class.
Dude, I think he rocks. Yeah, he's awesome.
Right. But I'm just looking, let's just go straight measurables here at the combine. Now, 6'2", 205, bigger guys. So I'm definitely okay with that. 4.5, 440, 1.56, 10-yard split, 38.5 vert, 10.5 broad. Like, those are just fine numbers. 29th in athleticism score. Okay. I mean, I thought Trey Harris, me personally, now maybe I'm way off. I just saw him run by everybody in the SEC. I thought he was going to come in here and blow the doors off and some testing. Now, again, some injury stuff here. Is he at 100%? Maybe he does better at the pro day. Maybe I'm just nitpicking. And that's certainly something here that people get involved in.
You kind of have to.
You have to, especially I think this wide receiver class is good. That just to me stood out, and I'm a little bit harsher on wide receivers, Tyson, and other positions. You know that. So to me, Trey Harris was a faller. Do you disagree with that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, that's why this is hard to do. Like, it's not necessarily really in my nature to start looking at some of these things, like where these guys run insane times for normal people and then be like, this guy can't play. Especially when I've seen him like he caught 100 passes in a game when he was healthy at all. Like, he dominated when he was on the field. And so sometimes play speed's a little different.
Yeah, I like him. I mean, I can't wait to break this stuff down, man. I'm already chomping at the bit to get into the film further and start putting together our top 5s. But let's keep cruising here. Here's your first guy that stood out to you that was different from me.
Yeah, Kyle Monangai, I think, again, in the running back group that performed really well, and you have guys like Bashal Tutton like running a 4.32 and looking like the man. Kyle guy doesn't help himself here. I mean, this is his performance. 22nd out of 24 in the 40-yard dash at a 4.6. 20th out of 24 in the vertical jump at 34.5, 23rd out of 24 in the broad jump at 9 feet 9 inches. This is again a stat class. I think he tumbles and he already can't catch passes. So when you're talking about a like first and second down running back that is slow compared to his peers and not explosive, he has to make up for it in different ways that I don't think he has.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the same thing on my guy here. Theo Weiss Jr., another wide receiver here. This guy from Missouri, he's a bigger body guy, 6'3", 200. Oh, that's a little slim for the height, so you expected a little bit more out of him, Tyson, because ran a 4.5, 640. All right, 6'3", 200. That's okay. This is where I think this is bad. 31-inch vertical jump. That was the third worst amongst wide receivers. 9'9" broad, second worst. That's just not going to cut it. I mean, listen, I thought this was a guy next to Luther Burden that really was productive at Missouri in the SEC with a good quarterback at Brady Cook. I had high hopes for maybe a steal day 2. I don't even know if he was going to fall to day 3, Tyson. I was like, we could see a guy like this be one of those early guys that's taken off the board, especially at his height. 31-inch vert, 9'9" broad, just no explosion. That is scary to me. That's a big faller.
No, it's ridiculous. I mean, ridiculous is maybe harsh. But also, if you notice, Brad just said Brady Cook was a good quarterback. If you go back and listen to pretty much every gambling recap episode we have, I think that there's different opinions out there by you on the internet. My next faller here, to me, this is one where I maybe cheated a little bit more than the rest because Caleb Johnson, like when you watch him and when I've seen him, like the lateral agility already isn't great. So to show up and run a 4.57, like I shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter. I love the player. I think Caleb Johnson's a good player, the running back from Iowa, but he's an upright runner. He doesn't necessarily seek out contact the way that somebody should at his size. And again, the measurables are good, but to show up here and be towards the back of the class, like if he would have been smack dab in the middle, I maybe would have had him in the rise episode. These things it's fickle and it's difficult. I think he fits the exercise.
Well, Tyson, what's scary to not scary, I'm using that maybe a little too much, but like what's interesting to me, maybe what's like concerning for some of these other guys is there's so many like running back prototypes. Like there's a lot of big 6 foot 220
when Marion
guys.
Hampton shows up and does what he does, and Quinshon Judkins shows up and does what he does, and you are looking the same way at the scale and at the there's a separator there.
Right, and that's why we have Gordon and you have Johnson as the fallers here, because Judkins and Marion Hampton showed up and put on a show. And you're like, whoa, that's athletic. And you're like, okay, these guys are the same size, and it was not the same. So I do think that comes into account here, especially when you're looking and it's fine margins. That stands out. So I kind of agree with you here, Tyson. You just missed my cut. I was not impressed by Harold Fannin Jr., tight end from Bowling Green. There's already concerns about his blocking, Tyson. When you're looking for the guy to be the tight end behind Loveland and Tyler Warren, this was not a good showing from me. Ran a 4.7 140. 4.7 140. This is supposed to be the primary receiving tight end. He's 6'3", 240. Okay, that's big. That's not bigger than Terrence Ferguson, who ran way faster. Now, the athleticism score 8th. Okay, that's pretty good. The broad jump 9.10, vertical 34. That scares me. Like there was not a lot of tight ends in this combine who participated in the on-field drills like that, Tyson. So to me, to really be like middle of the pack when it comes to the athleticism stuff, when you're supposed to be the separator, when you're supposed to be the receiving tight end, that doesn't bode well for me going forward.
No, but he didn't sprain his ankle, which helps for the tight end drills there. That was crazy. And to finish that, good for you. But I thought Fannin was more athletic than this, I guess, watching. Admittedly, I didn't watch as much Bowling Green football as I wanted to. The girlfriend takes the remote away from me sometimes, but I thought he was going to be more athletic.
That's why you got to stay single like me so you watch Bowling Green.
It's okay. My next follower here, Mason Graham. Now we're getting to the part of the show that is maybe going to sound a little weird, But this dude was 296 after being listed at 320 at Michigan. That's a pretty significant difference here. And then 32-inch arms, Brad. That's 12th percentile for defensive tackles. That is not good. That is not, the right side of the scale to be on when it comes to these kind of things. And these are things that matter when it comes to, are we going to, what are we willing to invest in this guy when history tells us, people with this physical profile don't necessarily succeed.
Yeah, that was boy, that was interesting. I'm curious, man. I think he's a really good player. I think you're right, though. Like letter of the law, we know how the NFL works. I think that hurt him. I mean, it's crazy to say.
And I will say that one of my followers that I wanted to put on here was everyone who did the measurements at the Senior Bowl, because a lot of these guys that are like that I have coming up here looked awesome, in Mobile. And then all of a sudden, like their hands are an inch smaller and their arms are a quarter inch shorter. It's like, what's going on?
Yeah, it's strange. Okay, Denzel Burke for me, my next one, cornerback from Ohio State University. Now, I think maybe this is a little bit cheating, Tyson, because the shine really came off Denzel Burke.
It's been tough.
It's been tough for him. But to show up here, man, like you got it, this your moment, from a 5-star athlete coming out, didn't necessarily blow anybody away while you're at Ohio State, but still somebody who always had hype. Like maybe this is the time that he flips the strip, or flips the switch. 4.48 40. All right. Well, what about some explosion? Didn't do it. Like no vert, no broad. Come on, man. It's not like you're a lock first round pick. Like I was a little disappointed by that. Now, 1.5, 10-yard split, you'll take that. If you're looking for a guy, and especially at his size too, like he's a bigger corner. I mean, 5'11", 185, not huge like some of the guys we've seen, but also like he plays physical. So I think that's a good sign for him. But I wasn't too impressed with Burke. What is that a little too harsh, Tyson?
No, again, this is hard. Like it's hard because all these guys are freaks, dude. And so when you get into some of this stuff with the numbers, but I think that there is maybe a little sour taste in your mouth and like with him, because again, like you said, the shine has come off. I'm sticking in Columbus for my next one here with Jack Sawyer. This was 31 3/4 inch arms, and like this is a guy that was already a fringe round one guy that I don't know the exact number. I think he's like 7th maybe percentile for his arm length. It's tough for a guy that some people were mocking, especially during the college football season. It was 26, 27, 28, all the way to 32. But he was included in a lot of these first round mocks, and we're not going to see that again. Does that play out in April? I think that it does, and he ends up in round 2.
Yeah, that is interesting, Tyson. I not doing a ton here too. That's something. I think he did on-field work, right? I think I saw him run around
a little
on the field.
Individual stuff and all that.
Yeah.
But again, like physically, they all look pretty good to me. I don't know. I'm not measuring the band.
Yeah, it's just so fun. And you were talking about it kind of before we jumped on. It's like, well, we kind of think it's silly, but it kind of turns out like if you don't have to meet the measurements for this position, you're just not quite as good as people think.
They're right a lot of the time, and it sounds stupid, but they are.
All right, last one for me, Malachi Starks. This one, boy, and I think this is kind of tied into what we saw Nick Emmanwori do, both a major riser for us. I call him a super freak. I think there's 2 that were at the combine. Like I said, go check out the risers episode if you want to know the other one. But when you compare, these are supposed to be, okay, Malachi Starks, number 1 safety in this class. But, man, this Nick Emmanwori, he's pretty good too. Okay, so let's compare them. How'd they do at the combine, Tyson? Well, Malachi Starks was not explosive, 33-inch vert. That was 3rd worst. Okay. Well, meanwhile, Emmanwori was 1st. All right. Well, 40-yard dash, he's all right. 4.5. Emmanwori ran a 4.38. Like just the comparison between the two was, I thought was pretty eye-opening. And now Starks is a really good football player. He did it at Georgia. He's well coached. But again, when it comes to this draft stuff, and you're looking at like, okay, who's an athlete? If it's razor thin, that guy just put on a show and it's a super freak. We've seen Malachi Starks before, and it's safeties in the NFL. Like that's the type of stuff I'm looking at here. So I thought there was a faller, at least in terms of the perception around Malachi Starks. So I don't think this necessarily affects like, is he a first rounder or is he going to be a good football player? But I think when we come out of this combine, we're like, boy, that Emmanwori is a freak. This guy's, he's a football player.
I think that this, I'm calling it now. This guy's pro day is going to light the world on fire. Georgia is going to
Right.
get those numbers up. He's going to have he's going to run a 4.38 at the Georgia pro day. But my next one is similar and kind of in that same vein. At the beginning of the season and for a while now, like we've known Will Campbell is going to be the first tackle off the board, and now we don't even know if he can play tackle. Brad, I mean, 32 and 5/8 inch arms. This is the 7th percentile. For arm length, it's not good, and he's having to answer. He's coming into the week, and really the draft process. It's like, okay, that's the guy to beat at the top of the board, and now he's fielding questions at the combine about what he thinks about playing guard.
Oh boy, this is a
From the
guy
pros.
that we said maybe would be the first overall pick back in the day. Everybody needs a tackle. We didn't think the quarterback class was very good. Boy, that is crazy to think that he
I
could not even
can't
be playing.
necessarily measure his arms like with just my eyes on the TV copy, so it was hard to know that he was a little T-Rexy.
Yeah, but somebody's got the measurement here. I mean, all these guys.
Yeah.
Well, here's what pisses me off, and I will say with this riser and faller thing as we kind of close out. All these draft gurus and these like draft guys like keep an eye out on this guy. This guy is actually maybe climbing up the boards. These NFL scouts. I'm like, brother, this guy was like a freak at Georgia. Like this guy was a freak in the SEC. Like everybody knows who he is. Like just because you don't watch college football doesn't mean that nobody knows who this guy is. Like Sleeper, the running back from North Carolina, Maureen Hampton. It's like, no, we all know he's good.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think they don't get the reports during the year, so then they get to Indianapolis, and there are a lot of people that don't watch college football, so I'm sure they're getting that engagement. But it's like, dude, I wanted you to cover like how small Nick Nash was and the way he ran and that kind of stuff. I already knew some of these guys were freaks.
Yeah, I know. Okay, let's kind of put a little bow on this, Tyson. Let's go back to the board. So we both were in agreement. These were the 5 guys who stood out to both of us the most on the followers category. Will Howard, Dylan Gabriel, we thought had a bad week at the combine at the quarterback position. Same with the wide receivers, Isaiah Bond and Tez Johnson. And then Ollie Gordon. Boy, we've been hard on him the past year. It just kept going into the combine. That was unfortunate.
We have been mean to Ollie Gordon.
Not necessarily mean. We've been truthful. I think that's the thing. Like nothing we're saying is unfounded. And I think it showed up at wow. I mean, did we watch the combine? Trey Harris, for me, wide receiver, that a little underperformed. Just maybe I was being a little nitpicky there. Theo Wisto, I thought, just had a really bad week athletically. And Harold Fannin maybe got duped, but you can't be the wide receiving tight end or the catching tight end and have that athletic numbers. Denzel Burke, maybe a little similar to Harris, thought he would show a little better. The Malachi Starks, just getting overrun by another safety mate. For Tyson, Kyle Monungai, I'm in agreement there. Him and Caleb Johnson both just like, all right, big running backs, and the other big running backs performed well. You guys didn't. Mason Graham, Jack Sawyer, Will Campbell. Tyson is just, man, he's just hammering them with those little short arms, man. I don't know what his deal is with that now.
I'm picking on him. Like it's just got to be the way it is, unfortunately. But the Fallers episode that we do every year is one of my least favorites. So I'm glad to have it in the rearview mirror. I like doing the risers much more.
Yeah, absolutely. So go check that out if you haven't. That's why I got to say subscribe if you're like, all right, let me go check that out so you don't miss a single thing. It's right on your feed, as you guys know. Smash that like button on the way out. Let us know who is your biggest follower, all that good stuff. Share it with a friend. Share it with an enemy. We're going to get out of here. We've done a ton of stuff. As we break down this NFL combine, we got a ton more NFL stuff and all that good stuff. We start putting together our big boards, start getting our mock draft stuff in. And if you're a basketball fan, don't worry, we got you covered with March Madness and NBA stuff right around the corner. So we'll speak to you guys when we speak to you. Till then, peace.